Okay, so cash flow problems have been addressed and we're starting work again. It's now the middle of October, so it's a couple of months since the last episode. So I've got the wood to put on the back, I've got the plastic coated panels to put on top of that, I've got the I haven't got them. Oh, there we go. I've got my resilient bars to attach the metal with, and we're all ready to go. So, plan for today is to finish this back wall, get it up, and also construct and hopefully stand up the two side walls. I've got the wood for them. That's all I've got at the moment. So once that's done, I'll be putting the cover back on, and we'll probably have another little pause, probably till the end of the month, to get started again. So, as Great Scott would say, let's get started. Alright, so this is just a little footnote. So now I've got to come clean about that gap. It's too small. It will fit the back of the shed, but I didn't consider that I needed to put a gutter on the back of it. So I'm having to make some adjustments. So ideally I would run this OSB down to about here, so it was hanging down the back, and the panelling would go on top of that and also hang down the back. But I'm trying to maximise the space I've got so I can fit a gutter in there. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be stopping this OSB about here. I'm going to be fitting this DPC underneath it, approximately here, right the way along. This is just an odd piece I've cut off, so that will be attached. This will hang down over the back, hanging down here, so in case there's any water does get in here, it'll run down here, run down this DPC and run down the back. So that hopefully will keep it dry just in case. I've got my resilient bars to go on this, and then the cladding will go on the back of that, and the cladding will push tight against the back here. So that then saves me 20 mil, which I hope will be enough to get the guttering in. I'm going to have to do some special guttering as well, but we'll deal with that as it comes. Hopefully I can use some, well, instead of using a standard gutter, which is 100 mil or so, I'm going to try and use perhaps some plastic 40 mil pipe, cut that in half, make up some brackets, and use that. So the other thing I've got to do is all these boards are too wide. They're 12-20 wide, and these studs are at 400 centres so that the plasterboard fits on the inside. So I've got to cut these lengthways as well. Joy oh joy. So I've measured the wood. I'm cutting it 50 mil short of the bottom. So it's going to be, the thickness it's got to go is about 30. I've got 11 for the sheet, and I've got something similar, 11, maybe 15 for the resilient bar. So that's 25, 26. So I'm looking at, I wanted a maximum of 45 degrees, so I'm looking at about 30 degrees slope, which is pretty steep, so that should shed water, no problem. Alright, let's get cutting. So doing this cut here, I've lined up that edge, so that's where I want that wood to go to. And then here needs to come halfway down. So I'm going to call that halfway. I'm not going to measure this. I'm just going to lay it out and cut it with the rip fence on the saw. So I'll just get that. So I've marked this measure. This is where I took the measurement. That's actually 20 mil. So I need to cut it from the other end. So what I've done here, I've set up the fence like that, and I've measured 20 mil from the fence, and I've measured to the inside of the blade because that's where it's going to make the cut. So you can see 20 mil runs along that inside tooth, not 20 mil to the other edge, otherwise I'd be cutting it too narrow. So you can see here, this is in position now. That stops just short of the bottom, and this side cut here is halfway across that stud, and the other piece will join on butt up next to it. Save time. I've stacked all the boards on top of each other as they're all going to be exactly the same length. I'm just going to make one cut and cut all of them. That saves measuring, marking and cutting each one individually, although the amount of time I've spent lining them up to make sure it's right, I'm not sure if it's actually saved me any time. Anyway, here we'll cut it now, but absolutely measure. This is how you can measure once and cut 5 times. So yeah, just measure twice just in case. I think I call that a resounding success. I set the saw depth, teeny nick there, none there, teeny one there. So interesting, different thickness of the boards. Anyway, now I need to cut these to width. Okay, I'm going to start attaching the sheets now. I just need to make sure that the thing is square. So what you do is measure the 2 diagonals from that corner to that corner, and then from that corner to this corner, and if it's the same measurement then you know it's square. If one of them is larger or smaller, then it's kind of turned into a parallelogram. So I've measured one corner, I've already measured this, but the other corner was 606, and that looks like 606 to me as well. So this is sitting square as it is. So I'm just going to attach it, and away we go. Okay, so I've positioned the board on. I've marked the middle of each of the studs, and I've drawn a line on the outside so I know where I'm going to put my screws. They're not going to be drifting around the place. I put a rail on the top. I'm just going down the sides and down the middle. Every 40 mil, not 40 mil, 400 mil. Yeah, every 400 mil. So that's the first sheet attached. I haven't gone all the way down to the bottom because I'm leaving that a little bit loose. There's the bottom. I'm leaving that a little bit loose so that I can push the what's the word? The DPC up once they're all in place. Right, I'll get on and do. Right. So all the boards are attached now. I've slipped the DPC under and screwed that down. And I just wanted to go over. You'll see there's that gap there. So the board is stopped short of the bottom. The reason I've done that is because two reasons really. One, I want this DPC to go out at an angle so that water can shed off it more easily rather than have it go straight down and come out at 90 degrees where it might be inclined to just sit. And the other reason, if it did sit, then the bottom of these boards are going to be sitting in water and they're going to rot. So by stopping these boards short of the bottom, even if it does actually go down like that, and it doesn't go at an angle, which I was hoping, the bottom of the boards aren't going to be sitting in water. So as the water builds up, it will eventually shed if it's flat. So it's possible you could end up with a 1 centimetre pool at the bottom of water, but it's just sitting on that DPC. It's just going to sit there, and if it gets bigger, then it'll start shedding, and it won't be on the boards. So that's the reason I've cut this short. Even though thinking about it, that may be complete overkill because I'm going to be wrapping the whole thing in house wrap anyway, which is also going to be sitting over the top of that. But better to be safe than sorry, I think, is my view. So, right, now to put the house wrap on. Okay, so this is the house wrap, which I'm putting on now. I'm just rolling it out the bottom, and then put the lower piece or the bottom piece on first, then the top piece overlaps on top of it, and then as the water runs down, it runs off the top sheet and onto the outside of the bottom sheet. And that's the way you do it. I've got to pull this across here. I'll leave myself a good overlap at that end to wrap round the other, the next board. Oh, bloody leaves falling on it. Right, get moving. So once I've got all the top, all the wrap on, I won't be able to see the lines that I've put up to show where the studs are. So I won't know where to attach the resilient bars. So I've just marked those points along the front edge, and I put a mark on the bottom of the wrap, as you can see there, so I can redraw those lines, and I'll be able to screw into studs. Right, put the top piece on. You can see I've just put that brick on the end there just to hold the end so I can reposition it because it's very slippery. Just take this down. I've got an overlap on the top, so that will go over. The roof will sit on top of that, and then everything that comes down will just run down. Great, the wind. Right. Now, I regret having stapled those along the front because I can't see my marks, so they're going to have to come out. Okay, so I'm going to have 4 rows of bars. So I've transferred. These are the 4 heights. That's where the stud is. That's going to be the next row. That's where the stud is for the next row. That's where the stud is the next row, and that's where the stud is for the bottom one. I've just marked just where the studs are going to go. So now I'm just going to put those. At the risk of teaching my grandmother, I'm going to say it because I nearly did it wrong myself. I put the first screw in there, lined up with the crosses. I'm using the crosses on the sheet to set the level. First one's gone in. I nearly put the second one in, but don't do that. Come right the way across to the end, put in the last screw. That way you know the middle's all straight, and then I'll just whack those in. Right, I've screwed on all the resilient bars, and I've laid the roof across the back to work out where I need to position it. Now when I put it, initially I put it on, so this was at the edge, and 2 problems with that. One, that's not very much of an overlap to kind of seal around the edge, which I wasn't very happy about. The other thing is down here it came in in the middle of one of these, which would have been even more difficult to try and seal around. So by shifting the whole thing up, I've now got the position where it's this far away from a hump on both ends. So there's a teeny bit of a lift up there, but not much, but I've got a full 20 mil there to wrap round the corner piece that I'm going to put on it to seal it. So that gives me a good degree of protection from wind blowing through or anything like that, although with this on the side of it you can't really get wind blowing it through, but it'll just drip down the side there. And plus it's also going to be back against the fence, there's not going to be a lot of wind getting in there. But that's that gives me a nice fit. Also the other thing, joists, not joists, rafters. This is where the rafters are going to come. This is the, actually no, it's not. No, this is just where the studs are. No, the rafters won't be, or actually the rafters probably will, because they're going to be, if I do 600s, they'll be in the same place. But you want the rafters to sit here, because this is going to come up to the top. This is going to be level with the top, and as the rafter comes across, that's going to be no distance at all, but when it comes out here, it's going to be jamming on that. It's going to be resting on that. In fact, it's not going to touch the wood because it's going to be at an angle. When it sits like that at an angle, it's not much of an angle. The rafter will sit on the top of the shelf, top of the wall rather, and not touch the wood. Whereas if you look over here, it's touching the backing and it's not resting on the top of the wall at all. So the rafters have to go here. Anyway, that's that. I'm going to cut these now. Well, actually, I'm not going to cut both of them. I'm just going to cut that end one, because I'm putting it on from this end. Just cutting it with the angle grinder. I'm just going to cut down that line, and then I'll start attaching them. But I'll video that. And then obviously the end one, I'll cut it according to exactly what position it needs to be. It's coming on.